The Envision Pro is the third controller that Scuf has made since it was bought by Corsair, and each one has gotten worse and worse. I'm going to start off with the basics of this controller just for anyone who's looking for a general review of the Envision Pro, but don't worry, I'm going to roast the crap out of this controller and Scuf. If you just want to skip to that part, go to the timestamp that is right here that I have on the screen. The Scuf Envision Pro is a well-built controller. It feels like the size and ergonomics of the Xbox controller or the Scuf Instinct, but it has moved the sticks to be side by side like the PlayStation controller or the Scuf Reflex. The face buttons, triggers, and bumpers have a satisfying tactical feel and sound and are not mushy like most controllers. The D-pad and face buttons use mechanical key switches, which basically mean operate using mouse clicks. The controller's triggers have the ability to be long pull or mouse click. This is great if you play multiple different styles of games. The mouse click is great for FPS games like Call of Duty and Apex, while the long pull is better for car games like Rocket League or Forza. Of course, the standout features of the Envision Pro is the inclusion of multiple additional buttons. Like most Scufs, it has 4 back paddles. The back paddles are built very similar to the Scuf Instinct, with paddles being built into the back of the controller instead of being removable like the Reflex. The Reflex had major issues because of this. Fix the controller! So this is a fantastic change in my book. The only big issue hardware-wise with the controller is the joysticks. Why Scuf decided to use ALPS instead of Hall Effect joysticks don't have stick drift, makes no sense to me at all. The Envision also has 2 side action buttons, 5 G keys, and a profile button. This allows tons of customization options. These buttons and customability is the biggest draw of the controller. The issue is, these features are the downfall of it. Hello to those who skipped this part, welcome to the video. In order to use the extra buttons and features that are the main selling points of this controller, you have to use iCUE, Corsair software for controlling their RGB, fans, and other peripherals. And in order to use anything on the controller besides the back buttons, iCUE must be running on the PC at the same time as the game. Scuf, Corsair, why? I understand needing software to program the controller, but allow me to save the whole configuration to the controller, not just the back buttons. Because this is a thing, there are major issues and glitches all of the time. Every time I turn on my PC, for some reason, the right stick sets its response curve to exponential, even though inside the software, it says it's on dynamic. To fix it, I have to select exponential, click out of the software, click back into the software, and then select dynamic so it's actually correct. A couple of times I've had it where the controllers just stop working in the game. Every other button on the controller works, but I would not be able to aim down sight or shoot the weapon. The weird thing about that is if I go into the software, it would show that I'm pulling the triggers. They're just not working in game. The only way that I could find to fix this issue would be to cycle the profiles on the controller itself, not in the software. I even tried restarting the computer the first time I had this glitch, and it wouldn't fix it. The biggest issue of all with the software is sometimes it just crashes. And when that happens, it can take a second for the onboard profile, which again doesn't include all the buttons on the controller, to take over. And sometimes it just doesn't take over at all and you're just holding a dead controller. Oh, and speaking of dead controller, this is actually the second Envision Pro that I've had since its release, which is less than 2.5 months ago as of the recording of this video. I ordered my first one on the day that it came out, October 12th, and received it on October 20th. 4 days later, my controller completely stopped working. It would show up in iCUE software for 2 to 5 seconds and then completely disappear, not to be recognized by the software or my PC. Then began my experience with Scuf support. Side note to Scuf, if anyone from there is watching this video, everything I am about to describe would be fixed if you just had a phone number your customers could call. Trying to troubleshoot through Twitter, excuse me, X, the platform formerly known as Twitter, is a recipe for disaster. So I DM'd Scuf on Twitter on Tuesday, October 24th. I gave them all the required info. This is the 4th time in 2 years I've had to go through this process, so I'm very familiar with it. They then responded asking for all the information I had already given them. I then replied the next day with the exact same message I sent the first time, then record this video going through and showing them exactly what is happening when I connect my controller to my PC and send it to them. Again, did not receive a response for over 24 hours, and they asked me to check what firmware is on the controller, which I can't do because the controller is immediately disconnecting when I plug it in. Surprisingly, they responded very quickly, asking me to check for it in audio devices, which is something that I understand how to do because I love messing with PCs, but the average person is not going to know what to do. I'm also out of town this day, but would be home the next morning, so I asked what the next step would be if that didn't work. The answer to this question sent me over the edge. They then say to try another USB cable, which I showed myself doing in the video I sent of them of my controller not working. And then I did not get a response for 4 days, and I slightly lost my temper. Long story short, I sent them back my controller, got another one back about a week and a half later. At this point, it's been over 4 weeks since I ordered the controller, and then started to discover the other issues this controller has, as I described earlier. Corsair acquired Scuf 4 years ago, December 16th, 2019. I was so excited when this was announced because I love Corsair's products. Over half the components in both of my PCs are Corsair, and I love Elgato, which is also owned by Corsair. It started off with so much potential with the making of the Instinct, which in my opinion is the best overall controller Scuf has ever made. Its only issue being that it's an Xbox layout, and many people, especially competitive FPS players, prefer the PlayStation side-by-side layout. But it's all been downhill from there, with the Reflex having so many paddle issues, making the controller unusable at times. And now how botched the launch of the Envision Pro has been, with failing controllers and software issues, Corsair needs to figure out what the issue with Scuf is. With the Envision Pro being tied directly into iCUE, thus directly to the Corsair name, the more issues people have with the controller, the worse Corsair is going to appear to the new audience that is being introduced to it. So what's the verdict on the Envision Pro? If you have $180 to burn and have the patience to tinker with your controller and wait for software issues to be fixed, get it. When it works, it really is an amazing controller. But something that I have learned with technology over the years, do not buy things based on promises of things to come. Buy based off of what is being delivered in that exact moment. And right now, I cannot suggest anyone buy the controller without understanding the absolute mess you would be getting in.